You have 2 weeks to leave, my father announced from the top of the basement stairs, his voice carrying the authority of a man who never questioned his own decisions in 57 years of life. Your sister needs the space for her wedding reception. You've mooched off us long enough, time to grow up and find your own place. My mother stood behind him nodding in agreement, while my sister Brittany examined her manicure with the particular boredom of someone who already gotten what she wanted. I sat on the couch in the basement apartment I renovated with my own hands, the space I transformed from a concrete storage area into a fully functional living unit, knowing something they didn't. For years ago my dying grandmother had transferred this entire property to me, a secret she kept from everyone except her attorney, making my parents not my landlords but my tenants, and this eviction attempt the most spectacular backfire in our family's history. The property lawyer they hired to formalize my removal was about to make that very clear. Let me tell you about the inheritance nobody knew about and the family meeting that changed everything. I'd moved into the basement 4 years ago at my grandmother's request. She'd owned the house since 1978, purchased it with my grandfather before he passed, raised my father here, watched him raise his own family in the rooms above. When her health began declining, she'd asked me to move in. Someone needs to help me with the property, she'd explained. The yard, the maintenance, things your father never learned to handle. And frankly, I want company that doesn't make me feel like a burden. I was 24 at the time, working as a paralegal, saving money for my own place. The basement was unfinished, concrete floors, exposed pipes, a single bare bulb illuminating decades of accumulated storage. I know it's not much, Grandma said. But if you fix it up, it's yours. A real apartment. No rent. I'd spent 8 months transforming that basement. New flooring, drywall, a kitchenette, a full bathroom with plumbing I'd learned to install from YouTube videos. By the time I finished, it was a legitimate living space, 800 square feet of apartment that I'd built with my own hands. Grandma watched the renovation with pride. She also did something else, something I wouldn't fully understand until years later. Grandma died 2 years after I moved in. The funeral was dignified, well attended, and notable for one absence, any mention of her will. My father assumed he'd inherit the house, his childhood home, the property he'd lived in for most of his life. He spoke about carrying on Mom's legacy and keeping the family home in the family. Nobody questioned the assumption. Grandma's estate was modest, the house was the only significant asset. Of course it would go to her son. Except it didn't. What nobody knew was that Grandma had transferred the deed 2 months before she died. Not through her will, through a direct transfer, handled by her personal attorney, documented and filed with the county recorder's office. The property, worth approximately $475,000 in the current market, was placed entirely in my name. Her instructions to the attorney were specific: don't tell anyone. Let the current arrangement continue. The truth would emerge when it needed to. I didn't fully understand her reasoning at first. I'd received a letter from the attorney after her death, explaining what she'd done and why. Your father was never responsible with money or property. Your mother enables his worst impulses. Your sister has been spoiled beyond recovery. You're the only one who truly loved this house, who worked to maintain it, who saw me as something other than an obligation. The property is yours. Use that knowledge wisely. I'd kept the secret for 2 years. Living in their basement, paying no rent, maintaining the property as I always had. My parents assumed they'd inherited the house. I never corrected them. The arrangement worked. Until it didn't. Brittany's engagement changed everything. My younger sister had found a man willing to overlook her personality in exchange for her appearance, a transaction that satisfied both parties. The wedding was planned for September, a lavish affair that exceeded what either family could reasonably afford. Brittany wanted the reception at our family home. Specifically, she wanted it in the backyard and basement, the outdoor space transformed into an elegant garden party, the basement converted into a secondary reception area for dancing and late-night festivities. The problem was me. She's still living down there, Brittany complained to our parents. It smells like her sad little life. I can't have my reception in her apartment. We'll tell her to leave, my mother assured her. She's had a free ride long enough. The eviction announcement came 3 months before the wedding. My father delivered it with the confidence of absolute authority, the patriarch of the family, the owner of the home, the man whose decisions were never questioned. 2 weeks. Find your own place. Your sister needs the space. I've lived here for 4 years, I pointed out. I renovated this entire basement myself. And we let you stay rent-free. You should be grateful. But now we need the space for family purposes. Where am I supposed to go in 2 weeks? That's your problem. Should have thought about that before spending 4 years mooching. Brittany smirked from behind them. She always resented that I lived in the house. It complicated her narrative of being the successful daughter while I languished in a basement. I'll have movers come for your stuff if you're not out by the deadline, she added helpfully. I considered telling them the truth then. Watching their faces as they realized they'd been living in my house for 2 years, trying to evict me from my own property. But Grandma's letter had said to use the knowledge wisely. Wisdom suggested letting them dig deeper before revealing the ground beneath them. I understand, I said quietly. But legally, you'll need to formalize this. I've been here long enough to have tenant rights. My father scoffed. Fine. We'll get a lawyer. Make it official if that's what you need. Please do. They hired Gerald Morrison from a local real estate firm. Gerald was competent, thorough, and, crucially, unfamiliar with our family history. He approached the case as a straightforward eviction, parents removing an adult child from their property. His first step was researching the title. Standard procedure for any property matter. What he found was not standard at all. The family meeting was called for a Sunday afternoon. Gerald had been evasive when scheduling it, just saying he'd found something that required discussion. My parents assumed this meant good news, confirmation that they could proceed with removing me. We gathered in the living room, my parents, Brittany and her fiancé Bradley, and me. Gerald sat in the armchair usually reserved for guests, his briefcase open on the coffee table, his expression strange. Thank you all for coming, he began. I've completed my research on the property, and there's a significant issue we need to address. Issue? My father asked. What kind of issue? Mr. Holloway, when you retained me, you represented yourself as the property owner seeking to evict your daughter from a basement unit. That's correct. I'm afraid it's not correct. Gerald pulled documents from his briefcase. The deed shows this property was transferred 4 years ago, before your mother passed. The current owner is not you. Silence. That's impossible, my father said. My mother died 2 years ago. The house went to me. The house was transferred before her death, through a direct deed conveyance. It never entered her estate because it wasn't hers when she died. Gerald looked at me. The property is registered to Amanda Holloway. Your daughter. More silence. Then chaos. That's ridiculous, my father shouted, standing from his chair. My mother would never. This has to be forged, the documentation is authentic. I verified it with the county recorder's office and the attorney who handled the transfer. Gerald remained calm despite the eruption. Margaret Holloway transferred this property to Amanda Holloway 4 years ago, shortly after Amanda moved in. The transfer was legal, properly witnessed, and filed correctly. But why would she? Amanda's she lives in the basement, she owns the basement. And the main floor. And the second floor. And the land. Gerald looked at me again. You've known about this? Since Grandma died. Her attorney informed me. And you didn't say anything? My mother's voice was shrill. For 2 years? You never asked. You assumed you owned the house. I let you assume. Let us assume? We've been paying bills, maintenance. You've been paying bills for a house you live in. That's normal tenant behavior. Tenant? My father's face had gone purple. I'm not a tenant in my own childhood home, it's not your home, Mr. Holloway. Gerald's voice was firm. It hasn't been your home for 4 years. I can't proceed with this eviction because there's nothing to evict. Your daughter isn't a tenant you can remove. Your tenants she could remove. Brittany finally spoke. This ruins everything. My wedding, the reception. Can still happen, I said. If you ask nicely. This is my property. I decide who uses it and how. The next hour was the most satisfying of my life. My family cycled through every stage of grief, often multiple times, denial that this could be real, anger at Grandma for her betrayal, bargaining about how the property should be fairly divided, depression about what this meant for their assumptions, and absolutely no acceptance whatsoever. Gerald eventually excused himself. I'll send my final bill to the property owner. He nodded at me. Ms. Holloway, if you need legal counsel regarding your tenants, I'd recommend someone specializing in landlord-tenant law. Thank you, Gerald. I'll be in touch. My father watched him leave with the expression of a man whose world had inverted. Why would Mom do this? He asked, his voice smaller than I'd ever heard it. I'm her son. This was supposed to be my house. Did you read the letter she left me? I pulled out the copy I'd kept. She explained everything. I read them relevant portions. Your father was never responsible with money or property. I've watched him waste opportunities, take shortcuts, and expect things to be handed to him. I love him, but I don't trust him with what I spent 40 years building. My father flinched. Your mother enables his worst impulses. She smooths over his failures instead of addressing them, sacrifices one child's needs to satisfy another's wants. My mother looked away. Your sister has been spoiled beyond recovery. She expects the world to accommodate her and throws tantrums when it doesn't. Brittany opened her mouth to object, then closed it. You're the only one who truly loved this house. You moved in when I asked, renovated the basement with your own hands, maintained the property without complaint. You saw me as a person, not an obligation. The property is yours because you've earned it in ways the others never have. Silence. She watched all of you for years, I continued. She saw how you treated her, the obligatory visits, the impatient conversations, the waiting for her to die so you could inherit. And she saw how I treated her, the genuine visits, the actual help, the relationship that wasn't about what I'd get when she was gone. That's not fair, Brittany protested. She was old. Visiting old people is boring. And that's exactly why you're not on the deed. The wedding discussion happened 3 weeks later. By then, the initial shock had faded into a simmering resentment that would probably last forever. But Brittany still wanted her reception at the family home, now my property, and pragmatism required negotiation. I want to use the backyard and basement for the reception, Brittany said, her voice carrying the particular strain of someone asking for something instead of demanding it. Will you allow that? I'll consider it. But there are conditions. What conditions? First, you apologize for calling my apartment a sad little life. My home? That I built myself. In a property I own. She grimaced but complied. I'm sorry. Second, you acknowledge publicly, at the reception, that this event is happening at my home with my permission. No pretending you're hosting at the family house. This is my house. That's humiliating, those are my terms. Take them or find another venue. She took them. The larger arrangement took longer to sort out. My parents had been living in my house for 2 years, paying bills but no rent. They'd assumed ownership and acted accordingly, making decisions about a property that wasn't theirs. Now we needed to formalize what they'd been informally doing. You can continue living here, I told them. But the arrangement changes. This is my property. I'm the landlord. You're tenants. We're not paying rent to our own daughter, my father protested. Then find somewhere else to live. The house is worth $475,000. I could sell it tomorrow and buy something for just myself. You'd make us homeless? I'd make you face reality. Something Grandma apparently worried you'd never do without help. The compromise was imperfect but functional. My parents would pay $1,200 monthly, below market rate for the area, but acknowledgement that they were tenants in my property. They would handle basic maintenance, as they always had, and major repairs would be my responsibility as owner. The arrangement was documented legally, with clear terms about duration and termination. This feels wrong, my mother said as she signed the lease. Living in my daughter's house. It's felt wrong to me for years, I replied. Living in your basement, being called a mooch, being threatened with eviction from a property you didn't own. Maybe wrong is relative. She had no response. The wedding happened in September. Brittany's reception unfolded across my backyard and basement, the spaces I'd maintained and renovated, now hosting the celebration of someone who'd wanted me gone 3 months earlier. True to our agreement, she acknowledged publicly that the event was at her sister's home. Thank you to Amanda for opening her beautiful property for our celebration, she said during the toast, the words clearly painful to deliver. I smiled and raised my glass. The family dynamic shifted permanently after that summer. My parents remained tenants, paying rent that went into a savings account I maintained for major repairs. They were quieter now, more careful, not from respect necessarily, but from the awareness that their assumptions had been catastrophically wrong. Brittany avoided me when possible. Her wedding photos conspicuously cropped out any shots that showed the property too clearly, the house that should have been her parents' inheritance but wasn't. I continued living in the basement I'd renovated, working as a paralegal, building a life in a space that was finally, officially, legally mine. Grandma's letter sits framed in my bedroom. The final paragraph is the one I read most often. Use this knowledge wisely. Your family will resist, deny, and rage against a truth that contradicts their expectations. Let them. Their discomfort is the consequence of assumptions they should never have made. You've earned this property through love, work, and presence. Don't let anyone, especially family, convince you otherwise. I didn't let them. And when they tried to evict me from my own home, the property lawyer they hired became the messenger of their own irrelevance. Some people might think I should have told them immediately. Should have corrected the assumption, established clear terms, been transparent about the inheritance from the start. But Grandma knew her family. She knew that telling my father would result in legal challenges, family warfare, and attempts to invalidate her wishes. She knew that letting the truth emerge at the right moment would be more powerful than announcing it prematurely. She gave me the property and the wisdom to protect it. The eviction attempt that backfired wasn't an accident. It was the scenario she'd anticipated, the moment when assumptions would collide with reality, when the family would discover who actually owned what they'd taken for granted. They tried to throw me out. They discovered they were guests. And now, every month when the rent check arrives, they remember whose house this actually is.